but we got to let time be the teller of how this is going to work. Anyway, I'm out of sorts, guys. It's been a week. I've been off. I haven't recorded. I'm completely out of sorts, but we're going to get back in the swing of things. Oklahoma, the underdog in the 2025 season. Let's discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, FanDuel released some lines for some Oklahoma games, and they're not super high on the Sooners.
The way it looks, in some capacities, no. In others, we did see some kind of favorites. The ref sports, KREF, posted a tweet from FanDuel, our partner here, and there's 4 lines that they dropped for Oklahoma so far. You've got the OU Michigan game, Oklahoma Texas, Oklahoma Alabama, and Oklahoma versus Missouri. Now, John, as you said, underdogs here. It appears that the Sooners are considered big dogs in the Red River Shootout at 10.5 to open. Plus 10.5, that is. That means the Sooners are dogs, and they're plus 12.5 dogs at Alabama. Now, granted, we were also very big dogs at home against Alabama when we played them last season, and we saw how that turned out. But in retro, I think this is actually a pretty big deal, John. We are 2.5-point favorites against Michigan, game 2 of the season, and then 6.5-point favorites against Missouri at the crib late in the season. So, if I'm being honest, that Michigan line has me encouraged that Texas and Alabama line will probably drop as the season progresses.
Yeah, so Oklahoma's playing at home against Michigan, which means they're actually a half-point underdog here against the Wolverines.
On a neutral site, yes.
Yeah, being at home gives you 3 points. So FanDuel actually considers the Sooners a half-point underdog against the Wolverines. Now, that home environment is going to make a difference. Bryce Underwood making his first road start against the Brent Venables defense inside Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. That's going to make a difference. Sooner Nation's going to show up. They're going to look to rattle the kid. They're going to try and make life a living HE double hockey sticks for Bryce Underwood, the true freshman quarterback. And yet, Oklahoma's still not getting respect, man. And I get it. They're going to have to go earn it on the field. I don't think anybody's going to give Oklahoma any respect this year until they go show something on the field. 6.5-point favorites over a Missouri team that's turning over a lot. No Luther Burden, no Drew Lock. That's a team, lost a first-round offensive tackle. That's a team that turned over a lot. And you're only a 6.5-point favorite against the Tigers when you almost beat them with your garbage offense last year.
Yeah.
Come on now. Like, I'm not seeing any respect for Oklahoma. I don't see any respect for Oklahoma. 10.5-point underdogs to Texas. Are you kidding? Like, bulletin board all that, because the Sooners are going to be better than that. The Sooners are going to play these teams tougher than that. Again, this is what happens when you're coming off of a 6-7 season, when you've got a lot of turnover, when you have coaching turnover, when you have, an offensive line that was in shambles last year. People are going to have their doubts about this team. If they go out and they beat Michigan and they can do it by double digits, that'll start to earn them a little bit of respect. But until then, until maybe they go into the Red River Showdown undefeated, people aren't going to respect the Sooners.
No. Not at all. And the Sooners are going to have to prove it, which we knew that. We've talked about that here numerous times. And that's one thing that we're okay with. We're okay that the Sooners need to prove themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do. Oklahoma's going to go out there and show everybody that they deserve to be considered up there. And I guess for me, I'm curious to see what those lines look like when you get to Auburn. And how does that line shift when OU plays Texas? Like, who was it? Josh Pate had talked about OU going into Texas. It was I think a fan asked the question, of what is the possibility of Oklahoma walking into Red River 5-0 and Texas walking in 3-2. How does that change the dynamic of that game? And Pate agreed. He's like, as much as I would like to say that there's no way that Texas could, there's a very good chance that Texas could walk in at 3-2. How? Losing the Ohio State game to start. They're going to win everything in between. But the game right before Oklahoma, they travel to Florida and play at the Swamp. And if Lagway is healthy, because Florida is returning a lot of talent. They're considered one of the sleeper teams this year as well, along with Oklahoma because of, last season. But they've got some of the best defenses in the country right now as far as each position group. And so if they find a way to disrupt things for Texas and Ohio State or follow the Ohio State blueprint, John, there's a possibility that whenever Oklahoma and Texas matches up, Texas would have already 2 losses. Now, granted, the question's going to be from there then too. Would the odds makers switch up how they feel when it comes to the spreads once that game comes up? I guess the big question from that would be too is not only would they switch it up, but what would Oklahoma have to do to force them to switch it up?
I mean, they'd have to win against Michigan by 2 touchdowns or more and then blow the brakes off Auburn.
So double-digit wins is what you predict would have to happen to get there.
Losing in Columbus to Ohio State, losing in Gainesville to Florida, like that's not necessarily, big upsets. You know what I mean? Like Texas could still be considered a top 10 team with those 2 losses.
That's very fair.
I mean, if Oklahoma loses to Michigan, loses to Auburn at home, the line might balloon to 2 touchdowns against Texas. If Texas goes in 3-2, Oklahoma goes in 3-2, and those are the 4 losses between the 2 teams, that line could blow up to 2 touchdowns for Texas. Because I think everybody's going to still think highly of Texas, regardless of if they lose those 2 games, because they're against the defending national champion and everybody, one of a lot of people's preseason picks to be a dark horse candidate to contend for the playoff this year. And DJ Lagway is a good quarterback, man. So if they lose those 2 games, I don't think it'll hurt Texas as much as if Oklahoma lost their 2 games going into Red River.
That's true. And with the matchups that Oklahoma has, even though a lot of people are heavy on the Auburn train, for Oklahoma to garner any respect, they would have to win both that Michigan and that Auburn game. Then at that point, it could be just like 2023, where they're like, the Sooners seem a little bit better than we expected.
Yeah.
I just don't want Oklahoma to end up like 2022, where they start off hot, the big win in Nebraska, and you're like, oh, okay, this may be a different team, and then it falls apart. Right. I don't expect that, mainly because the defense is, to me, light years better than it was then. No shade against the other players. It's more of everybody
it's not
completely understands the scheme in comparison. I mean, you've got players now going into their 4th year in this scheme. So, I think the understanding of the scheme will make it to where this defense will still be stout. We just need material to show up.
Yeah, it's like we've said all offseason. If the offense is at all good, above average, this team is a lot better than it was last year.
There you go.
And if they can get to Texas, the Red River Showdown, 4-1, 5-0, they'll have a chance. I mean, if they are that good, they're going to have a chance to come out of the Cotton Bowl 6-0. Some big contracts were handed out on the recruiting trail, and I know a lot of Oklahoma fans are saying, well, why aren't we spending the money? Let's take a look at that coming up next here on Locked On Sooner.